One evening on the island of Sodor, all the engines were fast asleep at Tidmouth's sheds, except Thomas. He was waiting for Lady. As Percy was going to spend all night delivering the mail, she was going to stay at Tidmouth's sheds tonight. But Lady was late. At last she finally arrived. She looked very tired. "It's been a very busy day," said Lady. "I've just had to help Percy take his mail trucks up Gordon's Hill. They are very heavy." Thomas laughed. "Heh! I've pulled heavier trains than that. I once pulled the express." Lady couldn't help but laugh. "A tank engine can't pull the express. It's way too heavy for you." "Oh yeah?" said Thomas. "Well, let me tell you." And this is the story Thomas told Lady. It all happened back when Thomas was shunting coaches and trucks back at Knapford Station. Back before he got his branch line and before most of the engines came to Sodor. Back then there was only Thomas, Edward, Henry, Gordon and Eagle running the railway. One day Thomas was waiting for the Topham Hatt. He was very worried. Yesterday he took Edward's trucks to Wellsworth Station, but the trucks made him run away. He was worried that the Fat Controller was still upset with him. But thankfully the Fat Controller wasn't. He had an important job for Thomas instead. "Thomas, I've decided that Edward needs a rest. He will do your shunting in the yards, while you do his passenger run from Knapford Station to Wellsworth Station." Thomas was excited. He always wanted to pull passenger trains. "Oh, thank you, sir," he said. The next day he went to Knapford Station. He saw Edward there. He had finished shunting Thomas's coaches into place. "I'm so pleased I'll finally be able to get a run," he said. "All right," said Edward. "You're all ready. But be careful, you don't want to leave your train behind again." Thomas knew Edward was only having a friendly joke, but he was still worried about letting Sir Topham Hatt down. But soon all that disappeared when Thomas finally was on his way. He had a fun time taking Edward's coaches up and down the line. The passengers were impressed, and even were the coaches. A couple of days later in the sheds, Thomas began boasting about his new job. "Sir Topham Hatt is very pleased with my work. He said I should pull passenger trains more often." The other engines decided to ignore him. Apart from Edward, he was pleased at Thomas's work. "You know what," said Thomas. "I'm becoming so good with coaches, I think I could pull the express." All the engines were listening in amazement now. Until a big blue engine started to laugh. "Ho ho 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 ho! Remember, little Thomas, my coaches are far heavier than yours. Yours are just converted trucks. My coaches are splendid. It takes a strong and powerful engine like me to pull the express. You, Thomas, are just a small little tank engine. And I'm sure, once the Topham Hatt doesn't need you, you'll be back to shunting. That's all you are, Thomas. A shunter. Nothing more, nothing less." Thomas was upset over what Gordon had said, but he knew at the same time Gordon was being boastful. The next day, Thomas was getting his coaches when he saw the Fat Controller. He was talking to Henry, Edward and Eagle. "I have decided that you lot are getting far too much work for you to handle on your own. A new engine is on his way. His name is James. He'll help on the Knapford to Wellsworth line. He'll be here in a few days. So keep up the good work until then." Thomas was worried. "He's replacing me already," he thought. He was about to leave for his coaches when the Fat Controller came up to him. "Ah, Thomas, We've just discovered a broken piece of track in between the Knapford and Wellsworth line. All Knapford to Wellsworth trains have to be cancelled today, I'm afraid. So you'll help Edward shunting in the yards." "Yes, sir," said Thomas, and he rolled slowly away. At Knapford Yards, Thomas told Edward about James and being replaced. Edward gave a small giggle. "The Fat Controller's not replacing you with James. There's going to be extra work coming this month, so he's brought James over to help us all out." "Trust me, Thomas, you're not being replaced." This made Thomas feel much better. But what if what Gordon said was true? At this time, he was the only tank engine on Sodor. What could he do that the tender engines couldn't do? He was still worried about being replaced. Later that day, Edward and Thomas had just finished their shunting when I heard someone coming into Knapford Station. It was Gordon, and he was going very, very slow. "Hello, Gordon," said Thomas. "What's the matter?" Gordon just gave a small whoosh of steam. "There's something wrong with me," said Gordon. "I don't know what, but for some reason I can't get up to my full speed, and I'm not as strong as I used to be." Thomas gave a small giggle. "I thought strong and powerful engines had no problem pulling the express. Maybe James is coming to replace you." This made Gordon very cross. Just then, the Fat Controller came up. He was talking to the fitter who had just looked over Gordon. "Some of his parts have worn out, I'm afraid, sir. They need replacing. To be honest, I can't believe that they missed these worn out parts when they were fixing his safety valve." The Fat Controller looked at Gordon. "Gordon, head straight to the works. You need repairs." So Gordon was uncoupled from the train and he left the works. Thomas and Edward were trying not to laugh. Just then, the Fat Controller came over to Thomas and Edward. "You two are the only engines available, I'm afraid. Do you think you two can pull the express? Henry will take over at Wellsworth Station." The two engines looked at each other. "Let's go for it," said Edward. Thomas was excited. He had never pulled the express before. Soon Edward coupled to the coaches, and Thomas coupled in front of Edward. "Do your best," said the Fat Controller, who had just climbed into the first-class coach. And as soon as all the passengers were on board, and the baggage, and as soon as the guard blew his whistle, the two engines pulled with all their might. And soon the train left the station. It was hard work for the two engines, but they tried their best. Come along," said Thomas, who wanted to go as fast as he could. "Slow down," said Edward. "I can't go as fast as you." They were having a fun time. Soon they arrived at Wellsworth Station. Henry was there waiting for them. "Thank God you're here," said Edward. "There's no way we'll be able to get these up Gordon's Hill." "I'm not even sure I can get them up Gordon's Hill," said Henry. "I need you to be my back engine, Edward." "Okay," said Edward. So Thomas was left in the siding to fill up with water, while Henry left with Edward at the back, helping him to push the train up Gordon's Hill. Later that day, the Fat Controller came to see Thomas and Edward at the sheds. "I am very pleased with your work today," he said. "You shall both be rewarded." "Thank you, sir," they said. "Edward, I think you've had enough rest. You can go back to working on your line now." "Thank you, sir," said Edward. But this made Thomas feel very upset. "What about me, sir? Does this mean James is going to replace me after all?" The Fat Controller laughed. "James isn't coming to replace you. I need help with the goods trains and the extra passenger services I'm going to open up. I have big plans for this railway, and trust me, Thomas, you've got a big part to play as well. But I still need you to continue your shunting work until things have been put in operation." Thomas didn't mind this. He had a part to play himself. "Okay, sir. Wait, you two. You two better get to bed. Busy day tomorrow, and with James arriving tomorrow, I want you all in your best behaviour." Soon Thomas and Edward went to sleep, getting ready to meet James the next day. Lady was surprised. Let me guess, she said. Was the next day the day you rescued James with the breakdown crane? That's right, said Thomas. Then I was given my branch line. The Fat Controller is very proud of my work. He's not the only one, said Lady, and soon the two engines went to sleep. But Lady can't help but thinking, what if the Fat Controller gave Thomas Edwards' job to test him for the branch line work? I wonder if Lady is right, don't you?